My dear students of 9A and 9B, before uh, ending the teaching of lesson number 9, the Mughal Empire, I have decided to highlight the main points of the lesson, so that these points you must recall and can write correct answer as per the questions given. Because today I shall give you some homeworks and you have to prepare it. Lest you may prepare homework correctly, you can make your homework perfectly. I would like to highlight certain points of this lesson. Points mentioned in the board. First point, founder of the empire. Second, role of Humayun. Third, role of Sher Shah. 4, Akbar's reign. 5, Jahangir. 6, Shah Jahan's reign. 7, Aurangzeb and end of the rule. The first one, founder of the empire. Who is the founder of the Mughal Empire? You know very well. Babar was the founder of Mughal Empire. Babar was the founder ruler of the Mughal dynasty. Now, how had he established Mughal dynasty? By defeating the last Sultan Ibrahim Lodi of Delhi in the first battle of Panipat in the year 1526. By defeating Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat, Babar established Mughal dynasty in India. Besides, Babar introduced his own administration, good policies, and gained faith of the people of the country. And as a result of it, he was able to establish a rule for the people in the country. Although he ruled for about 4 years, yet he left certain, he left a vivid impression among the Indian people by means of adopting good policies for the welfare of the country, for the welfare of the people of India. Babar, not only a good strategist, good ruler, but he also was a great administrator, and hence Babar succeeded in course of time. And after a few years later, after the death of Babar, his son Humayun came to power. Rule of Humayun. Humayun ascended the throne and became the Mughal emperor after the death of Babar. Although Humayun's brother made an attempt in order to be the emperor of the Mughal dynasty, but Humayun did not want to take any action against them, simply because of the request of his father Babar. Babar requested Humayun not to take any action against his brothers, and that's why Humayun remained silent. And during the time when his brothers were plotting against him, but although Humayun became the emperor of the Mughal dynasty, yet his brothers left no stone unturned to be the emperor of the Mughal dynasty, by hook or by crook. But still, Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb did not take any initiative. Simply he imprisoned them, but did not kill them. He did not kill them, simply he imprisoned them. But according to some historians, it is said that Humayun punished them by cutting some fingers, or by imprisoning them lifelong in the jail. But he did not kill any of his brothers who plotted against him. But Humayun succeeded Babar in the year 1530 CE and defeated at the battle of Chausa and Kanauj by Sher Shah. The efficient army of Sher Shah encouraged them, and afterwards ultimately Humayun became an absconder moved here and there and ultimately reached Persia. Humayun being defeated by, Sher Shah. Humayun, ultimately, after the death of Sher Shah Suri, Humayun re-established Mughal dynasty in India. And second one, and third one, role of Sher Shah. Sher Shah established a strong dynasty, and then he also introduced a good system of administration. The people of India, they considered him to be an efficient ruler because of his good policies, because of his good system of administration, and of course the technique and method by which he extended his empire and made it very prosperous, rich and wealthy. The people of India accepted him to be their ruler. But after the death of Sher Shah, Humayun re-established the Mughal Empire. And next one, Akbar's reign. Who was Akbar? Akbar was the son of Humayun. When Humayun left Delhi and took shelter under the Persian ruler, Akbar was born there, and Akbar was a little fellow during the crisis period of Humayun. Akbar was born, and he was a very little fellow. But Akbar ultimately became the Mughal emperor. He enthroned in 1556, guided by Bairam Khan. Bairam Khan was his guide, guide. Bairam Khan was a great friend of Humayun. And hence, in absence of Humayun, Bairam Khan guided Akbar. He was actually Akbar's guide and took control of the state as emperor when Akbar was a little fellow, and subdued the Rajputs, regained lost territories, followed a policy of religious tolerance. He followed a policy of religious tolerance, which was adopted by Babar and his son Humayun. He followed the same policy, Bairam Khan. Bairam Khan adopted the same policy of religious tolerance, and the English factory was set up in Surat during the reign of Akbar. English factory. But Akbar was not ascended the throne during that time, but Bairam Khan. But Bairam Khan, after a few years later, Akbar declared himself to be the emperor of the Mughal dynasty and allowed the British to trade in our country. Afterwards, Shahjahan came to power. Afterwards, Jahangir, Akbar's son Jahangir, came to power. Jahangir enthroned in 1605 CE, and he was a liberal ruler and lost Kandahar to Persians, a great scholar, keenly interested in art and architecture. And Jahangir, consulted his wife Nurjahan, and during his crisis period, Nurjahan always used to advise Jahangir during his crisis period and helped him to take correct decision. And in the administration, Nurjahan had great influence. English factory was set up in Surat during the time of, not Akbar, during the time of Jahangir. Jahangir, the son of Akbar. Akbar allowed some English traders, but Akbar did not allow them to make any factory in India. Akbar allowed them to trade in India, but during the period of Jahangir, one English factory was set up in Surat during his rule. But there was a history behind it. How was the English allowed to make one factory in Surat? There was a history behind it, but I don't want to discuss in detail because of time. Because of the time is factor. And that reason, that history, if I start telling you, we will lose the time. So it is time consuming. And now, so Jahangir introduced a good system of administration. He interacted with the system of administration. He interacted the system of administration directly with the people by introducing chain of justice, allowed each group of people, whether low and high, whether rich and poor, to be justified, to be judged impartially. And next one, Shahjahan. Shahjahan, who was Shahjahan? Shahjahan was a ruler. Shahjahan enthroned in 1628 CE, added territory of Kabul and Samarkand and areas of Deccan to the empire, patron of art and architecture, drained the treasury with building projects, a number of buildings, a number of monuments, a number of palaces, mosques were constructed during the reign of whom? During the reign of Shahjahan. Shahjahan was a building king, building emperor. He is known as building emperor. Why? Because of good system of architecture he introduced, good system of painting he introduced, good system of art and artistic style he introduced while constructing a number of buildings, palaces, and spent a lot of money for increasing the glory and image of the Mughals. That's why the buildings constructed by Shahjahan are still a matter of discussion till today, especially the Taj Mahal, the great mausoleum which was constructed to commemorate the image and memory of his beloved wife Mumtaz Mahal, and the Red Fort which was constructed named Shahjahanabad at the time when he shifted his capital from Agra to Delhi, named it Shahjahanabad. The Red Fort which was constructed made of red sandstone and white marble. There were two white marble buildings inside the Red Fort. These were Diwani Am and Diwani Khas. There was a good system of giving appearance before the common people from Diwani Am and Diwani Khas. Both of the two places had a great historical importance. The people met Shahjahan directly and discussed their problems, and Shahjahan tried to find out the solution by means of various assistants who assisted him in taking correct decision. And next one, Aurangzeb. Who was Aurangzeb? Aurangzeb was the last Mughal emperor, actually independent emperor. But although he was the last independent Mughal emperor, but he had no independence since the Indian regional kingdoms declared themselves independent and stopped paying taxes and revenues, but he could not take any action against them. Why? Because want of money. Almost all Indian states, they stopped paying taxes and revenues. Then how could he spend money? He had to depend on some states of India like Bengal, Gujarat, Gujarat, Bihar, and some states of India. They extended their financial contributions for the Mughal emperor. And with the amount of money sent from there, Aurangzeb kept on continuing. Aurangzeb kept on continuing fighting against whom? Against the Marathas at Deccan. There were 12 years of time he wasted while staying at Deccan, but it was of no use. He was unable to defeat the Marathas, but unnecessarily spent the money, and there was no central authority in the state, in the capital city Agra. Hence the almost all Indian states, they started collecting taxes and revenues in order to pay themselves, and they stopped paying taxes and revenues to the Mughal emperor. And ultimately the Marathas were dreaming that they would become the ruler of the whole parts of India by defeating the Mughals. Ultimately, the weak successors of the Mughals, they marked the end of the Mughal rule in India. The wrong religious policy of Aurangzeb created nationwide dissatisfaction because India is a large country of Hindu majority people. As soon as Aurangzeb reinstalled jizya tax, law and order severely disrupted in the country and marked the end of Mughal rule. Ultimately, almost all parts of India they declared themselves to be independent, stopped paying taxes and revenues, and Mughal rule came to an end in India. And the weak successors of the Mughal dynasty they were unable to establish their control over Indian politics, but they failed. At the same time, they failed to achieve success also. And literary sources of Babar Nama, Rasidi Kuiki, Humayun Nama, Akbar Nama, Alamgir Nama, Badshah Nama, Jahangiri, these all were, written during the Mughal period. It gives vivid impressions about the Mughals and their rules, their administrative skills, their strategy, and certain archaeological sources like Red Fort, Jama Masjid, Taj Mahal. Some coins of the Mughal emperors also are important of archaeological sources. Art and architecture also are important. So, by this way, the Mughal emperor were extremely fond of. It is said that by some historians that the Mughal emperors were extremely fond of poetry and literature. Many Sanskrit works also were translated into Persian language, especially during the time of Akbar. And this system also was followed by his son Jahangir and later, Shah Jahan. But Shah Jahan stopped doing it. Shah Jahan concentrated to the building works. And Babar's autography Tuzuki Babari, Akbar's biography Aini Akbari, written by Abul Fazal, and also wrote on Sufism, its philosophy, Kathak form of dance evolved, Tansen, and some other important personality who embraced the court of Akbar. It is mentioned it is mentioned about their performance. Surdas composed Sursagar patronage to writers like Gyas Beg, Abdul Hamid, Abdul Haq, Delvi, end of creative glory with Aurangzeb each and every point. But of the reign of Akbar it is mentioned there. But the reign of Akbar and the reign of the reign of the reign of Aurangzeb had become an utter failure. Why? Because Aurangzeb's policy, religious policy, foreign policy, economic policy created dissatisfaction, discontentment throughout the country, and ultimately the Mughal rule came to an end. So, besides another reasons also are there behind it. Why did the Mughal Empire? What was the reason the Mughal Empire disintegrated? In my yesterday's class, I discussed thoroughly about the causes of disintegration, the causes of the fall of the Mughal dynasty. I don't want to mention. One point I must mention: the invasion of the foreign invaders, like Ahmad Shah Abdali and Ahmad Shah Abdali. First, he invaded India for several times, and at the same time, the two invaders who invaded India for two times. One was Ahmad Shah Abdali, who came to India from Persia and attacked India with a view to plunder Indian wealth, with a view to plunder the wealth of India, the ornaments, golds of India. But ultimately, during his first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth attempt, and he was able to achieve success. But afterwards, he could not plunder because the Indian rulers, they all were scared of the invaders like Nadir Shah and Ahmad Shah Abdali. But Nadir Shah, during his fourth and fifth attempt, achieved success. He was able to plunder huge areas, huge quantities of gold, silvers, ornaments, and ultimately he kept on invading India for several times, and it allowed the disintegration of the Mughal dynasty. The Mughal rule came to an end with the invasions, with foreign invasions of Nadir Shah and Ahmad Shah Abdali. Up to this, my dear students, next day I shall introduce another lesson, but I shall give you some homeworks. All of you, it is compulsory. All of you must prepare your homework, must make your homework and submit your homework copies. Thank you.